Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl. I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. This is our Freedom Fridays meeting for the day. An article I have here is by recovery.org. The article is by Changing Self-Perceptions During Addiction Recovery. And if you like this article, you can go to recovery.org. Let's hop into it. It says, who are you anyway? The changing perception of yourself during recovery. Who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? What fundamental belief do you hold about yourself at your deepest core level? These are not idle questions. Your answer to these questions is fundamental to your success or failure in recovery. Carl Rogers, famous psychologist, believed that an individual's experience of their core inner self was the most important element for personal change and growth. He believed that all motivation came from one's interest in serving the needs of the inner self. For people with addiction, salad is often a negative rather than a positive view of their truth, inner selves. The late John Bradshaw, addiction expert, felt that deeply held feelings of shame and guilt were the core factors that lead to addictive behaviors. In this book, Healing the Shame That Blinds You, 2005 Health Communications, he said that a person with internalized shame believes he is inherently flawed, inferior, and defective. Such a feeling is so painful that defending scripts of strategies are developed to cover it up. These scripts are the roots of violence, criminality, war, and all forms of addiction. So it says for people with addiction, salad is often a negative rather than a positive. And so we try to avoid some of the negative that we were doing. And there was nothing, for me anyway, positive about me being in addiction, right? It was all negativity. People I surrounded myself was negative. I was doing negative behaviors, and we tried to avoid that kind of stuff. Actually, to avoid the emotions and feelings that came with me using drugs and alcohol, that shame, that guilt, fear, all that stuff that we, suppress, that we use drugs and alcohol over with. And one of the big things that was a factor in my active addiction was avoidance. I would avoid everything. I was never accountable. I wasn't reliable. So I would just avoid things so I can use more drugs and alcohol. So this article is about like changing your self-perceptions, and it was a lot of self-negative talk. I always talk bad about myself. I always like I'm my worst critic, my worst enemy. I always beat myself down, and that kept me out there using more drugs and alcohol. I can't get clean and stay clean. I'm never gonna be anything. I'm just gonna die this way, and like somewhat okay with that. Like I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't see a good life for me. And that lined up with my actions and my behaviors and the way I was thinking. And thank God I didn't, die in the midst of it. So I had to change my perception about myself first and foremost until I can begin to change. It says, changing perceptions of oneself throughout recovery. Addicts often hold painful, shameful, or guilt-provoking beliefs about themselves. The real work of recovery comes not from managing to stop one's substance use, but in overcoming the self-defeating, painful, and negative self-beliefs that are the underlying for substance use. The greater goal is to create new, more positive perceptions of one's true innermost self. And we just basically talked about that. We hold on to this painful shame and guilt, and that we can hold on to that also in recovery. But that's where the work comes in. Like I have to work on myself to like let this stuff go. I don't want to be clean and sober and still be miserable, right? We can be. I sure was, and it just took some work. It took some work to break off this shame and guilt and the fear and the resentments, coming with all these baggage. And little by little, like I started shedding this stuff off. We're talking about the layers, and each mask that was I was putting on, I start to take off. It takes work, it takes time, It just doesn't happen overnight, and it's worth it. In the beginning, it was tough, it was hard, and still to this day can be tough and hard, but I can deal with it a lot easier because of the foundation I have put in place in the beginning of my recovery and still to this day. When I first got in recovery, like I looked at it like I overwhelmed myself. Like I have to do this the rest of my life. Like I was not receptive to that, but it just took time. It took patience, it took tolerance, it took a lot of principles to stay here, and it's each day I try to work on myself and not cause harm. And it's just changing perceptions of oneself. Like I feel better about myself today than I ever did. It was always, like I said before, like negative. I was suicidal. I was on the road to destruction. It was all, self-made prisons that we talk about. And lucky I didn't die. It just, my perception was very flawed and very one way. I was open minded to nothing. I just wanted to use and use and use, and I really didn't care what consequences was ahead for me. It talked about the lies and distortions and all the excuses that I had when I got here. It takes time to break that stuff off of you. Let's see where addicts often use lies, distortions, and excuses to deflect the truth because that fear that the truth empathizes negative aspects of themselves and their personalities. They may lie to cover up or diminish the extent of their substance use or to avoid recognizing the negative impact that their actions have on friends and family. And there we talk about avoid, recognizing the avoidance that I was like, I see it, but like I didn't really sink in here. It didn't really sink in my head that how much pain and suffering I was causing my friends and family. I knew I was, but I didn't know like the extent of it. Because like as addicts, we're not alone. We have family and friends that really care about us, and we're as we're causing harm to us, we're causing harm to them. Which is very sad. And it took time to like amend them relationships, right? I said a lot of I'm sorry's, and I follow that up with action today. I do say I'm sorry, right? But I follow up with action, right? I don't try to repeat the same mistake all over again. Not perfect. It does happen, but like I put the work into like own up and take accountability for my actions and my behaviors with the things I'm saying, with things I'm doing. So let's see here. It says over time, lies and deceptions negatively influence the addict's self-perceptions, adding to the cycle of lying, guilt, and shame. But in recovery, honesty is stressed about and promoted. The recovering person is given the opportunity and the motivation to relinquish negative self-deceptions, lies, and deceit. 12-step and other types of recovery programs address the underlying fears that often hold addicts hostage to negative self-perceptions. Fears of losing something they value and get from substance use relief, from difficult emotions to pleasurable brain stimulants can keep addicts from embracing recovery. But once accepted, the recovery process can address stubborn, underlying negative self-perceptions and can lead to true self-acceptance and freedom from drugs and alcohol. And that's a big part of that, just that one little thing. Self-perception can lead to true self-acceptance. I was acceptance of myself, I was acceptance to others and the world around me. So like my perception was negative about everything, about me, the world, my friends, my family, like it was distorted. So if I remain open-minded and change my perception, right, I start to accept myself more and more on a deeper level, not just surface level. Like, I can say I accept it, but to truly have deep acceptance. It takes a lot of patience and time and a lot of work in the program and the principles that we talk about. It takes time, takes work. Um, but it talks about the freedom, the freedom that comes with our self perceptions and letting go of that negative thought about ourselves and others. And the freedom that comes with it is limitless. We have limitless recovery here. It's like, how much do you want it? How much work are you willing to put in to get what was passed down to me? I see others have a lot of stuff, not just material things, right? But the spiritual freedom, the self-made prisons that they broke off, and like the freedom of resentments and fear and anger, all that stuff that I see others get through. It gives me hope to do the same. But I have to remain humble and put work in to actually, change. And it just takes time and it takes willingness. And it says, the truth will set you free. Sure will. The first step in changing negative self-perceptions and self-beliefs is to embrace honesty, radical honesty, where no distortions, minimizations, or half-truths obscure the reality of one situation. One of the reasons 12-step programs work for people in that they provide a place where the recovering person can be radically honest and bear embarrassing secrets about themselves without fear or judgment or ridicule. Becoming honest with oneself is the first important step on the road to recovery. I love that part. Like some of the things I had buried deep down in here, like it was eating me up, right? And I had to let that stuff go, right? And everything's not for everybody, and everything's not to be shared. But like I found a sponsor, right? I do go to a 12-step program. Like I have a sponsor to open up to, and without judgment, right? So I have somebody I can trust, I can confide in, and he's not going to judge me. He's not going to think I'm crazy, because a lot of things I've done or been through or seen, he's been through it also, or he knows somebody has been. So that freedom that comes with it is like, I'm going to keep this secret. I'm going to keep some of this stuff until the day I die, right? But, right, it's in their subconscious. It comes up here and there, like, it surfaces just like anything else. Like our emotions and feelings, they all resurface that we think we're suppressing with drugs and alcohol, right? But that's only a temporary fix. Drugs and alcohol is only a temporary fix, right? For a deep-rooted solution of like, I have to surrender and accept that I can't use drugs and alcohol. I have to first and foremost put the drugs and alcohol down, and I have to put the work in the change. It's not just easy as me not using drugs and alcohol no more, and then everything's going to be okay. It's just not the case for me. So it definitely, it's a relief from difficult emotions and feelings, right? We don't want to feel that stuff, right? And now in recovery, we have to heal and deal and move forward. My active addiction doesn't define who I am today, right? I know what I've done, and I'm not proud of it, but I do accept it, because like I'm not that person no more. I'm grateful that I've been through the things I've been through. As before, I wasn't. I was stuck, right? And I was really deep in addiction, and I didn't see a way out. And since I have a taste of recovery, like I'm motivated to keep going. I always look back, right? I'll take a look back in the past, but I don't have to stay stuck, right? So like I can focus on like some goals and what I want in the future. Stay present in the present moment with friends and family. So that's like the gifts of recovery. What has given me is like a peace of mind, and the loss of the desire to use. That was a big thing. That desire was it's been lifted, which it was tough. I couldn't believe it. Like I can't tell you when, but it has been lifted. Yes, there's thoughts. I have drug dreams. There's thoughts. Certain things remind me of certain things. But I don't have that obsession and compulsion and that desire to use, which is a blessing. Let's see here. So that you move forward, you begin to rewrite the internal mental script that you use to define yourself. With each success, each positive change in behavior, and each life affirming versus self-destructive choice, you build a new, more positive belief system about yourself. You slowly move from seeing yourself as a person capable of being honorable and making positive changes to one who is making such changes. At this point, having the support of peers who understand in your journey, peers who can support you and give you feedback and suggestions. It is extremely helpful. Following with continued commitment and support, you arrive at your goal. You attain a new positive and empowered view of yourself. You perceive yourself as a person who is no longer needs to hide any aspect of themselves or use substance to avoid feeling self-shame or guilt. Yeah, I am very proud of myself today. I'm, I'm reliable, I'm accountable, I'm trustworthy, I'm a hard worker. Um, I'm invisible, I'm available. Not perfect, right? I don't want to be perfect, but I'm way better than I was, right? And I have a chance to do that each day. As long as God gives me that opportunity each day to, to do better, not repeat the same mistakes. Um, and I view myself different. I have a different perception about myself. As before, like I was no good. I was broken on repair. I was a lost cause. All this stuff I was telling myself, and it was driving me deeper and deeper in addiction. Right? Yeah, there's other things that happen. There's some trauma things, and uh, been through this and been through that. Right? There's factors that played a part in my addiction, but a lot of it was self-made. I made this happen, right? So I had to take a look at that. That's where me and my sponsor does like step work, and I have a pastor, I go to church and stuff like that. I have a support network, and I have people in my life that give me suggestions, and I do the work so I can see myself, right? I have to take a look at myself and the things I've done and the things I've been through, and analyze it a little bit. Do a moral inventory, and to see where the root is, and to work on that. Because there's reasons why we did what we did, right? And we figure that out from working on some stuff. It just takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes it really takes some work, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. And this last part here, it says tips for gaining self-awareness and changing self-perception. Change your story. Your perception of yourself comes from the story you tell yourself about yourself. Look at the major circumstances that shaped your life. Reflect on how these situations made you feel about yourself. It is the meaning that you made about yourself because of the situation rather than the situation itself that impacts you today. If you had a tragic or painful trauma occur, you may have felt victimized or powerless, but you can change that viewpoint using today's perspective and see that the situation may also have resulted in you becoming more resourceful, resilient, and empathetic. Focus on this viewpoint will lead you toward your goal of changing your perception. You can begin to view yourself not as a victim, but as an empowered person who has gained strength and resilience by overcoming great difficulty. Yeah, you turn that negative into a positive, right? That's what I've done. The things I've been through and the things that I've seen, and the traumas and all that stuff, I turn it into a positive. Now I can give back. I can share my story and share my experience. And because, addiction doesn't stop. It doesn't discriminate either. So there's people coming behind us, right? So I have to stay in position to give back and show them like I've been through it, and this is what I'm doing today. And every time I do talk with somebody or try to help somebody, I don't force my opinion or my way of recovery, right? So I welcome all pathways to recovery, and so does the Capri Recovery Center, right? Which is a beautiful thing. Like, it's no one size fit all. So what we do is try to find your pathway, what works for you. So what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So, we work together to find what does work for you. There's a lot of avenues to go to get better. It says seek and use honest feedback from appropriate sources. Others often act as mirrors for us to view ourselves. Don't assume that people think you are flawed, defective, or hopeless. Ask trusted friends, people in your support network, and or a therapist or counselor to give you honest feedback. Yeah, so watch who you talk to and where you try to get your help at, because some people give you misinformation and it can make matters worse. So I have people that I can trust. Let's see here. See you in any areas that you might want to improve. By seeking feedback from people who care about you and your success, you can feel confident in that your insights are valid. Take time to reflect on the feedback honestly, evaluate it rather than reacting impulsively. As some feedback may trigger defensiveness in you, but knowing that its intent is to point you in the right direction rather than demean you with reflection. You may discover the exact issue that are most relevant to you. You may also discover strategy that can help you make the positive changes you desire. Yeah, and I can get defensive. A lot of people get defensive, but then you have to take a look at that, like the people that love you and care about you, right, and giving you suggestions and tell you certain things, right, and then I feel some type of way. I have to take a look at that because maybe it's true, whatever they're saying, or I have to actually take a look at that. But there's some people out there that will say things and do things to just to get a rise out of you too. So but I have people in my life that I know they're coming from a loving and caring place, right? And I live by, like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? The way you say it, you turn the voice, your whole demeanor, So I just, to be honest, I feed off that. I pick up on that kind of stuff. I'm more aware today as when I was in active addiction. But that was our Freedom Fridays meeting. If you like this article, you can go to recovery.org. Changing self-perceptions during addiction recovery. Until next time, we'll see you later.